So last time we spoke, I was still at, I want to say like 800 subscribers or something like that. But now we have officially surpassed 1,000. Actually a little over that. We're at 1,100 now. So thank you guys. First off, thank you guys so much for that. That is really awesome. When I was a kid, I always really wanted a channel with over 1,000 subscribers. I thought that was like the big impossible feat that was impossible to do, but now I've done it and that feels really cool. And I appreciate just having a community that's like interested in the things that I do, and that's just a cool thing in general. So thank you guys so much for that. Secondly, I've been streaming a lot more on Twitch now. If you want to see the process of actually like making meshes and like texturing and all that sort of stuff, things that I usually leave out of my videos, you can see that on Twitch now, and I've been having a lot of fun doing it. I also have channel members now. Thank you to my channel members. They're right here in my hand. Thank you guys so much for that. It's really cool having people who like what I make enough that they actually want to support me financially in that way. So that's really cool. If you want to become a channel member, you can do it. There's a link in the description. There's a little join button next to the subscribe button, which you should press if you're not yet subscribed. But again, thank you guys so much for that. I really appreciate everything. So now what we're getting into today is we're going to be making a tutorial for furniture in Skyrim specifically. This doesn't have to be for furniture directly. You can apply this knowledge to a lot of different types of mods for Skyrim, but specifically we're talking about furniture here today. You can apply this knowledge to like statues or like buildings and stuff like that, but again, we're focusing on furniture here today. Now, I am making a replacer mod in this video, which is a mod to replace a furniture that already exists in the game. But this also, I also explain how to do it if you're just making your own standalone thing. So, yeah, both is there. Last thing I want to say is that this is not a tutorial on how to model or texture or anything like that. I show you guys all the necessary information that you need for the modeling and the texturing aspects of this, but I'm not actually showing off the modeling and texturing. We are strictly sticking to what you need to know to make a mod, instead of, you know, like the basic 3D fundamentals. For that sort of information, check out the live streams or the VODs that are on my channel from the live streams. You can see all sorts of modeling and stuff like that there. So, but that just about does it. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, for hanging out, for checking out everything that I make. And so I think that's it. Let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. All right, first things first, now that we're on the desktop, we're gonna go over the things that you need really quickly. First things first, you're going to need something to model your meshes in. That is going to be Blender, most likely. You can also use something like Maya or 3ds Max, but those cost a lot of money. I highly recommend Blender just because it's free. A billion tutorials out there on how to use it, and it's just, in my opinion, the best software to do this. Next thing you're going to need is a texturing software. I use Substance Painter. I think it's the best one for it. It does cost money. It is an Adobe product, so there are some downsides to it, but in my opinion, it is the best thing that you can get for texturing. Now, you could also use something like ArmorPaint, which is really great. That is free. There's a $10 version where you don't have to build it yourself, but building it yourself is really easy, so I just say it's free. Because if you build ArmorPaint yourself, then it's free. Then there's also Quixel Mixer, which I've heard is very good, and Mudbox, which is kind of expensive, but is an option. It's another Autodesk product. You can also use stuff like Gimp or Photoshop or something like that, and just hand paint your textures. That's always an option. Like ArmorPaint, if you do go that route, you will have to bake your texture, you will have to bake your normals in Blender, which is possible. There's a bunch of tutorials on how to do it. It's just kind of annoying. Between hand painting your own textures and just using something like ArmorPaint, since you're going to have to bake your normals in Blender either way, I highly recommend ArmorPaint in that case. But if you're a more confident 2D digital artist, then painting your textures is totally fine as well. It's whatever you want to do. Next thing you're going to need is the PyNifly Blender Import and Export add-on. This one's pretty self-explanatory, just so we can import and export our NIFs directly from Blender instead of having to go some roundabout way of doing it. It's in the Fallout 4 tab, but you can use it for, as you can see here, literally every single Fallout game, save Oblivion, and Morrowind. The next thing is that you're going to need NIF Scope. This is one of those non-negotiable tools. This is how we're going to edit our NIF and make sure that everything is good and kosher. You're also going to need the creation kit, obviously, to make the actual mod itself. If you're using Photoshop to convert your textures, because you're going to need to convert the textures that you make from a PNG, JPEG, whatever you have it exported as, to a DDS. If you're using Photoshop for that, which I do recommend because it's the easiest way to do it, you're going to need the Intel TextureWorks add-on. You can also do it through Gimp. I won't be showing how to do it through Gimp, but it is possible to do it through Gimp. You're also going to need the Bethesda Archive Extractor. This is basically what the Fallout 3 archive tool is. It's specifically for Bethesda's newer games like Skyrim, Fallout, stuff like that. And lastly, you're going to need SSE edit. This is what we're going to use to flag our mod as an ESL, make sure that it's all cleaned up before we ship it off. So with those tools out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with BAE. You're going to want to download BAE from this page here. You just click manual download. It's going to take a second. And there it is. You just extract the zip file that you download, and then here it is right in here. With BAE installed, let's go ahead and open it up. We're going to type in BAE, launch that. And so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click File, Open File, and then navigate to your Skyrim directory. We're going to go with Special Edition because it's a Special Edition tutorial. Going to go into Data, and then scroll down until you find Skyrim Meshes 1. Oops. We wanted Meshes 1 and Meshes 2. Open. Alright. Then click Select None, just so it's not selecting every single mesh file in the entire game. And then we're going to want to go ahead and go into one of these two drop downs, right? So here in Meshes 0, furniture is stored in a lot of different areas, mainly 3 that we're going to be looking at. So in Meshes 0, you can find furniture in the Furniture tab, obviously. And then you can also find it in the Clutter tab. There are specific pieces of furniture, like more important ones like thrones and stuff, that you can find in the Clutter tab, weirdly enough. I don't really know why that is. But if you have an idea for what piece of furniture you want to use, you can type it in up here. I know specifically what I'll be using is the WR throne, which is the Whiterun throne. Don't grab the static one. If you see that there's an option between static and normal, click the normal one, because this is going to have all of the markers in it for sitting already, and that's another thing that we want it for. Because the reason why we're grabbing a reference NIF is so, one, we can reference the size of it while we're modeling our version of, or like our piece of furniture. But then the other reason is because this is going to have the markers for allowing the player to actually sit in it and stuff already baked into it. So we're just going to go ahead and grab Whiterun Throne 01, and then we're going to go ahead and extract. Let's click extract. We're going to do it on my desktop, and then I'm going to make a new folder here called Vanilla Meshes. Click select folder, and then inside this folder you'll see a meshes, architecture, Whiterun, WR clutter, and then there we go. There's our reference NIF. So we can close BAE now, and the next thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and open up Blender. And so when you're in Blender, we're going to need the PyNifly Blender add-on. And so you can get that from one of the links in the description. I mentioned it earlier in our required tools. Over here, you're going to want to go ahead and click Files, and then you're going to want to go to this GitHub link. So copy that, paste it. Then here you can see the ioscene_nifly.zip. Click that. And then here is the add-on. So again, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw this on my desktop. When we open up Blender, get rid of all this. Oops. And then we will click File, Edit, Preferences, go on to Add-ons. Click this little, it used to just say it right here, the Install from Disk, but now you gotta click on this little arrow, click Install from Disk. Gonna go ahead to Desktop, and then you'll click this, and then you click install from disk. I already have it installed, so it should show up like this. It's going to be this one right here, the NIF format. I have an older legacy version of it, but you're going to want to make sure that you click the check button here as well to make sure it's working correctly. And then once you do that, you can go ahead and go up to File, Import, and then you should see NIF file with PyNifly. That's the one you want to click. And then click that. Go to your desktop or wherever you saved the reference mesh to, or the reference NIF. And then click it right there. Click Import NIF. And so now you have the NIF in game, right? Or in, oh Jesus. Now you have the NIF in Blender. And so now you can use this for when you're modeling. You can get a pretty decent idea of, you know, making sure that you're keeping the scale correct, putting the arms where they need to go. So like when characters sit in the piece of furniture, if they use that like laying back sitting animation, their arms are sitting in the correct place, making sure their butt's not clipping into it, stuff like that. So I've already created my mesh. If you want to see the process of me actually creating the mesh that you're going to see me using in this tutorial today, I live stream the whole thing. Check me out on Twitch. I've been live streaming over there a lot more, just me while I'm making my mods, talking, hanging out. It's always a good time, and I've been having a lot of fun doing it. But I also upload all the VODs onto the YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and check out any of those VODs to watch me actually make the mesh. So I'm gonna go ahead and open that up. All right, so when you have finished your mesh, there's gonna be a couple things that you wanna do, right? So let's go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and send you the export process for a lot of these pieces here. So as you can see here, I have my low poly meshes, and then I also have my high poly meshes. So these are broken down into two pieces. I have the normal throne, and then I have the pad that they're actually sitting on. I want these to be separate pieces because I want them baked separately in Substance Painter. It just makes my life a little bit easier to do it that way. So I have them separated, and I make sure that I separate them, but I also add the extension onto them _HP. The reason why I do that is that when I bake it in Substance Painter, I can, as long as they're named correctly and I have the correct HP and LP abbreviations on the end of them to indicate the high poly and the low poly, it'll make sure that they get baked separately and they're not like baking on top of each other and stuff. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to export for Substance Painter first. So click your, we're going to be doing the high poly mesh first. Click your 2 high poly mesh or however many you have. And then you're going to want to go up here to File, Export, and then we export as an FBX. So we can just make a new folder here. We're going to call it tutorial. And then I'm going to name this throne _ high poly. And then over here, you're going to want to click select objects or selected objects because we don't want to export everything, just the selected objects. Under object types, just click mesh because we only want the mesh. And then down here, you can untick animation. That will just make sure that we're not, if it's for whatever reason, whatever you're exporting has animations attached to it, just making sure it's not exporting that and wasting data. And now over here in operator presets, you can click this button and then name this like Substance Painter or something. So whenever you do this, you don't have to click all these things every single time. You just go over here. I don't actually have a Substance Painter preset for this version of Blender, so let's go ahead and make it now. But so like, let's just fuck up all these settings real quick. If I click the operator preset, it just clicks everything like it's supposed to. And then we can go ahead and click export. And then we're going to do our low poly. So File, Export, FBX, and then it's the same thing, exact same thing, except this is our low poly. And then export. Okay, cool. So now that we have that done, we also want to go ahead and make the version of our low poly that's going to be exported as a NIF. And so now I don't usually recommend doing this until you've already textured everything, just to make sure you don't have to make any changes to your low poly and stuff like that. But once you're happy with your low poly and you know that this is the one that's going to be in game, this is fine, this is the one we're going with, you can go ahead and duplicate it. I'm going to put them out here. And then you can join them together, you know, all your different pieces together if you have yours broken up into multiple different pieces. And then you can go ahead and rename this. So we'll just call this Whiterun Throne. Better, because it's the better version of it. And then click Tab. Select all of its different pieces, and then do Control T, because specifically, and the PyNifly add-on does do this, but I like doing it myself just to make sure that everything is good. But you want to make sure that everything is triangulated, because in-game engines, or I guess computers in general, they view everything as triangulated already, but NIF scopes specifically, if you import something into it that has quads, it gets really angry about it. So you just want to make sure that you are triangulating everything just so it's not having any issues. Then we go over here to File, Export, and then we are going to click NIF File with PyNifly. We're going to use the Skyrim preset. We don't have any bones or any of this stuff, so you can go ahead and uncheck all of that. We're going to go into the tutorial, Whiterun Throne better.nif, and then export NIF. Now that's not the exact NIF file that we're going to be using, but because of how Skyrim Special Edition NIFs work, or I guess this newer version of NIFs that's used in like Fallout 4 as well, we have to go about it a little bit a different way. We can't just export the OBJ but like we used to in Skyrim Legendary Edition. But anyways, you guys will see that here in a moment. So let's go ahead and open up, I'm going to get rid of this because I don't need it, but let's go ahead and open up Substance Painter real quick, and I will give you guys a brief overview of the different settings and stuff that you're going to need for Substance Painter. Okay, so once you're in Substance Painter, go ahead and go up to File, and then click New. And we want to make sure that we don't have a template selected. Go ahead and click over on File, click Select, and then we are going to go to wherever you saved your exports. So this is my tutorial folder, and then we're going to click the low poly, click Open. I usually start at a 2K resolution. You can start lower than that at like 1K or something like that. It's completely up to you. And then we'll go ahead and click OK. We don't need to fuck around with anything else. So once you have this opened up, this is when you start doing all your baking, right? So you're going to go ahead and bake your high poly to your low poly meshes. And then this is where you're going to do all of your texturing. I can show you very quickly how we bake our high poly mesh. I don't have an ID map. I didn't vertex paint or anything like that on this one, so we're not going to deal with vertex painting today. And then we'll go ahead and get a height and a bent normals map. Now in the common settings, you're going to want to change match to by mesh name, and this is why we named everything earlier, right, with our different suffixes. My suffixes were _LP and _HP, respectively. And then over here in high definition meshes, click this little file icon, and then we will click high poly and then open. Now, after that loads, you can see that in some places, if this like a little red bit is showing up, that means it's like clipping outside the bounds of the bake. And so a little bit of that is okay. It's really not the end of the world if you have like a little bit of this. But you want to make sure that you're not like, it doesn't look like this. This is really bad. This is going to cause a lot of issues and make your textures look like ass. But a little bit, this is about what I use. You got a little bit right here, and it's like right on the edge of okay down here. This is a little bit much, but honestly, you don't see it in the final texture, so it's not really a huge deal. And then we're gonna go ahead and on our bent normals map, we're gonna change self-occlusion to only same mesh name. And that's basically doing the same thing that's over here. So only the high poly butt pad will be baked onto the low poly butt pad. It's not gonna affect any of the other bits around here like the rest of the throne, and vice versa. Only the actual throne bits will get baked onto the throne bits, and we're not gonna get any like clipping or artifacting from the butt pad, especially with it being so close. Right? But the thing is that with ambient occlusion, we want it to clip a little bit, right? Because we want the butt pad to cast like that ambient occlusion shadow on the bottom of the chair and stuff like that. So that's why we don't change self-occlusion to only same mesh name here. You can, but I honestly don't think it looks as good. Anywho, once you have all these settings set like how I have them, go ahead and click Bake Selected Textures. I always bake in 1K or 2K first, just to make sure that we get a good bake and that all the settings are looking fine. And so you can see a little bit of the artifacting down here from the red areas, but again, you really don't notice it, and especially once the textures are on it, it's honestly fine in my opinion. But yeah, it looks like we got a really good bake out of this. I'm pretty happy with it, pretty high resolution. And so now I'm gonna go ahead and do a 4K bake. You can add a little bit of anti-aliasing. I usually don't. It doesn't really usually need it. But now you can see here we got a really high resolution, really nice, good looking bake here, right? And so from here, this is where you're gonna do all of your texturing. Again, this isn't really a texturing tutorial, so I'm not gonna be going over it in a lot of detail. But if you want a little bit of an easy use shortcut and get a couple of smart materials that you are going to work really, really well with Skyrim's rendering specifically, I do have a pack of smart materials that I made myself. It's these main ones right here. I made all of them myself, and I made them specifically to work really well with Skyrim's rendering. Because when you're converting from PBR, which is what we're doing here, this is PBR texturing, to specular and glossiness texturing, which is what we convert them to, what Skyrim reads, things can get a little bit jumbled up and not really look very good. But these ones specifically were created to look good in that conversion. They work really well. So you got a leather one, you got a light steel, you got stone, you have ebony steel, you got dark steel, bronze, you got a darker leather. This is like a custom like textured glass like gem thing that I made that I think looks really cool. I use it in a lot of my Daedric work. And then this is actually smart material of all the textures for this model specifically. You can't download this one. I just have it just so we can show it off here. I do also have a wood texture that I created for this. I didn't actually have a wood texture before, so if you guys are interested in getting this wood texture as a smart material, so you can use it yourself, let me know and I can go ahead and add that to the pack as well, right? So that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the export, because if you're using Substance Painter as an export, like I said before, Skyrim doesn't use PBR rendering, right? And while most in fact, I would wager to say almost all game engines nowadays use PBR rendering, Skyrim doesn't. It's old, right? So we need to convert this to specular and glossiness. Thankfully, Substance Painter has a really easy way of doing that, right? So let's go ahead and up here to File, Export Textures. So we're gonna want to go ahead and create our own preset. I already have one down here, but we're just gonna create it together. So click New, and then this will be Skyrim, PBR to spec tutorial. That's what we'll call it. All right, and so you're gonna wanna start off with 3 maps. We're gonna want our RGB plus A, another RGB plus A, and then an RGB. So we're gonna name all these. This one will be $sign texture set. So this will be putting this name that you see right here in the place of $sign texture set. And then we're gonna leave that one alone. Over here, this one's gonna be our normal map, so we use the suffix _n. And then this one is going to be our metallic map. So we use M as in Michael. So now for our texture set, this first one here, in the RGB channel, we are going to go ahead and put our base color map. So go ahead and drag that on. In this little pop-up, we're going to put RGB channels. Next thing you're going to want to do is you want to grab opacity, drag that onto the A channel, and gray channel. Right, so that is our textures, or our base color, done. Next, we're gonna wanna do our normal. So we're gonna go over here to normal DirectX, put that on the RGB channels. And then we're also gonna wanna grab our glossiness here. This again is a converted map. You're not gonna see glossiness anywhere in here. The difference between glossiness and roughness is that they're inverted. So with roughness, white areas are less shiny and darker areas are more shiny. Glossiness, the opposite is true. Dark areas are less shiny, white areas are more shiny. It gets a little bit more involved than that, but that's the main takeaway, right? So back to our maps, our output template. Let's go ahead to tutorial. So we drag in our DirectX normal onto our RGB channel, and then we're gonna grab this converted version of the glossiness map and drag that onto our A channel, gray channel. Now I believe there is a glossiness in here. Yep, it's right there. Don't use the input maps. We don't have an input map for glossiness. We need the converted map because it's gonna convert it for us. And then last but not least, we have our metallic map. This one's easy. We just grab from our input maps, metallic, and then toss that baby right on there. Gray channel. All right. And with that said, we can go ahead and go back to settings. Now for our output directory, we want to select wherever you want it to go. It doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna put mine in Whiterun, tutorial, and then we will put PBR. These are gonna be our PBR textures. Or they're not PBR, actually they're not PBR textures. They are gonna be converted, so we're just gonna call this PNGs, because these are gonna be exported as PNGs, because we can't export them as DDS, unfortunately. There is not a DDS option, so we're gonna have to convert these to DDS, but we are not there yet. So over here in output template, you wanna select the template that we just made. It's gonna be Skyrim, spec tutorial. And then you're going to want to go ahead and click export. All right, cool. And then go ahead and click save settings. And so now we are done with Substance Painter. So now that we're done with Substance Painter, the next thing that we need to do is to convert our textures, right? So the textures that we just exported from Substance Painter, they are exported as PNGs. We need them as DDS because that's what Skyrim reads, the compressed DDS format, not the full-scale PNG format. Go ahead and navigate to whatever directory you just exported them to, so here they are. As you can see here, my metallic map is completely black. I don't need a metallic map now. It's not gonna really be used for anything. It doesn't really store almost any information. It's just straight black. So I'm gonna ignore the metallic map because I don't have any metal on my model. And so that's why you're not seeing anything on the metallic map. So I'm just gonna delete that. But you do see here that we have the base color and then we also have our normal. So now we're gonna go ahead and open up Photoshop. As I said before, you can convert to DDS with Gimp, but this specifically we're going to be using Photoshop in this tutorial. So this is where you're going to need the Intel TextureWorks plugin that I mentioned before. You can download it from the link in the description. It has a whole README on how to install it. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Do all of this once you have the Intel TextureWorks plugin installed. Once you have it installed though, you can go ahead and just grab these two maps and then drag them into Photoshop. We're gonna start with our normal map. Gonna do Control-Shift-S to save it. And then we're gonna wanna make a new folder. We're gonna call this DDS. Open that up. And then keep it the same name, whiterun_n, or whatever you have it as. Down here in the save file type, if you did everything correctly in installing the add-on, or the plugin, it should show up Intel TextureWorks.dds right there, and then click save. Now you're gonna get this dialog pop up. I'm gonna use my Skyrim normal preset and explain what all these things are. So you're gonna wanna make your own preset because this needs to be the same every single time. So for texture type specifically, we're gonna wanna use color plus alpha because we have an alpha and then we also have an RGB channel, right? For compression, you're gonna wanna use BC7, 8BPP, fast linear DirectX 11, right? Because we have a DirectX 11 normal map, and this specific type of compression is quick and it's small. It's as small as we can get it without having too much artifacting and stuff like that. And then for bitmaps, always click auto generate. So once you have all these settings just like this, click save, type in your preset name, and then click OK. Now we're gonna do the same thing for the color map. Control-Shift-S, DDS, put it in our DDS folder, and then save. And so now here's my color preset. It is almost identical in every single way, but we don't use the alpha channel. We just use the color channel. But other than that, it's the same thing as the normal. And then click save, and click OK. Now I'm going to quickly show you the metallic preset. Even though I don't have a metallic map, this is the preset you use for metallic map. It's the same thing as just color, but then you're also going to use BC1 for BPP linear. This doesn't have alpha channel support because we don't need it. But this also has the best compression. It's going to be the smallest size because it's just a grayscale alpha, or it's just a grayscale metallic map. It doesn't really store a lot of that information that can get artifacted like colored maps can. So it's okay to use BC1. It's really, really small file size because we're trying to save on as much storage as possible, because we don't want to be giving people mods that are like super huge or anything like that, because there's no reason for it when we don't need to. I'm gonna click cancel because I don't need it. But that is that. So now we have our textures converted, we have our NIF exported, and so now it is time for setting up the folder structure. Navigate to your Skyrim directory, go into data, and then in here, if you have a lot of mods installed, it's going to be all jumbled up like I do. But the main takeaway here is that we're going to want to go into meshes. And then here, we're going to right click, or we're going to want to go into meshes. If you don't already have a furniture folder, you're going to want to right click, new, furniture. I think I spelled that right. And then double click on it. You're going to want to create a folder for your mod, so we're going to call it Thrones Expanded. That's the name of my mod. And then open it up. We don't have our final mesh made or anything, so we're going to leave this alone for now. But I am going to keep it open, so we can easily go back to it. Now, in our textures folder, back in our Skyrim data folder, we're going to want to go into textures. Again, if you don't already have a furniture folder made, make it. But if you do, just double click it. And here we're going to add new, Thrones Expanded. And then this is where we're going to drop in our textures that we just made. So navigate to the directory of your textures that you just made. So you can see here the 2 DDS files that I just exported. We're going to drag these into the textures folder in our Skyrim data directory, right? So we can go ahead and minimize that one, or actually, we're going to bring that sucker back up, because now we're going into NIF scope. Because now it is finally time to set up our NIF. Go to the directory in which you saved the NIF that you exported from Blender. So here's mine right here. It's called the White Throne. And so it should look something like this. Go ahead and minimize that because we're going to need it. And then go to wherever you saved your reference NIF. So here's mine right here. Here's my reference. And then go ahead and make a duplicate of that just in case you mess anything up the first time. So as you can see here, we have our 2 different NIFs. Now, we can't put the one that we exported from Blender into Skyrim because it's not really going to like it very much. It's missing all of the markers and stuff that you can see on this one here. Like we have the furniture marker node, has a bunch of flags on it. This one doesn't have any of that. What it does have is our tri-shape data. That's what we need. Over in your export from Blender, click on the BS and tri-shape, right click, go to block, copy, and click yes. And then over here in the reference NIF, click on the top node, the 0 node, right click, block, paste, click yes. All right, now you can go ahead and close your export. This is where you will line up your mesh with the reference mesh. I just need to flip mine 180 degrees. So we're gonna right click on it, click transform, edit, click yes. And then I'm gonna rotate it 180 degrees and then click accept. All right, cool. So it's all lined up, it's looking pretty good. All right, so now you can see here the BS and lighting shader property of the original mesh is number 9. So we're gonna click on our mesh that we imported. It's BS and tri-shape data. Down here in shader property, double click on it, click 9. All right, cool. Now, you can go ahead and to make sure that the BS and lighting shader property doesn't get deleted when we delete the reference, click on its BS and tri-shape, go down to its shader property, and just make up a number. So we'll just put 42, and so it'll disappear off that one. And then we can go ahead and right click on it, block, and then remove. Click yes, and it's gone forever. So from here, if your mesh is all black like this, what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna click on the BS and lighting shader property for it, double click on the shader flags too, click its little drop down, and deselect vertex colors. And that should bring up any textures that you have. Now these textures are all sorts of screwed up. It should look all messed up like this because it's trying to map the textures from our original vanilla mesh onto this. If you're not seeing the original vanilla textures, what you can do is you can go up here to Options, click Settings, then down here in the Render tab, or the Resources tab, if nothing shows up in this box right here, like I have my Skyrim directory that shows up here. If nothing shows up in that box, click Auto Detect Game Paths, and it will load in your Skyrim data folder for you. Then go over here into Archives. I have a whole bunch of stuff in here. You're going to want to click Auto Detect Archives as well. Then go ahead and you'll click Apply and then Close, and it should show up now. So from here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to click this drop down, click BS Shader Texture Set. And so this box right here is for your normal, or is for your base color. This one's for your normal. The fifth line, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one is for your cube map, if you have a cube map that you want to put in. And then this one, the sixth line, is for your metallic map. We don't have a metallic map, we don't have a cube map, so we can ignore those two. We're just focusing on our base color and our normal. So here, you want to go ahead and put in the directory for your textures that you just put in your data folder. Right here, we have ours as textures, furniture, thrones expanded. So we can just go ahead and grab that, plot that in. And then we're going to add one more onto this. It's going to be called Whiterun Throne.dds. Oops. Oh, it's because I did not click dot. There we go. Now we got the base color. Still looks all messed up, but that's because we need to put in our normal map. So now you can actually just copy this, plop it in there, and then _n. Bob's your uncle. It's looking pretty good. Now from here, I'm gonna go ahead and do File, Save As, because we don't want to save over our reference. We want to keep our reference. And then now you can save it in the directory, in your Skyrim directory, in that mesh, in that folder that we created in the meshes folder earlier. So meshes, furniture, your mod name, and then we're gonna name this Whiterun Throne Remastered, and then click Save. Hey, so this is just a little editor's note right here. In this tutorial, we don't really go over collisions at all. If you follow the tutorial thus far, exactly how I've done it, your mesh will be using the collisions from the original reference mesh. Now, that's not really the most ideal way to do it, but at least in this case, it will still have collisions of some sort, which is what's important here to make the furniture at least work. Collisions in Skyrim Special Edition are a very involved, honestly just confusing process that I can make its own whole video on, but I felt in this tutorial it wasn't needed and it wasn't exactly pertinent to what we were doing. If a collisions tutorial would interest you, let me know and I can work something out. But for now, we're not going over collisions in this tutorial because your mesh should have some, they just won't be perfectly fit to your piece of furniture. And so now, last but not least, it is finally time to hop into the creation kit and finish this off. So go ahead and open up the Skyrim creation kit. Once you have it open, click File, Data, and then Skyrim.esm. This is all I really need for it. If you have some sort of requirement for different DLCs or something like that, this is where you would also add in the DLCs, but I don't have any DLC requirements, so we're just going to double click Skyrim.esm and then click OK and wait for everything to load. This will probably take a while, so just give it some time. If you get any pop-ups like this, just click yes to all. No one knows what any of those warnings mean. There's some sort of archaic language that is yet to be understood. So once the creation kit has loaded, you're going to want to go ahead and scroll down to the All tab, and then type in the name of your reference. So mine is the Whiterun Throne. Right. So you should see a static and a normal one pop up. We're going to be affecting both of these. If you're making a standalone piece of furniture, like a new piece of furniture all on your own, you're going to want to duplicate both of these, and then everything else you see will be the exact same, except you want to do this on your duplicate, right? But if you're making a replacer like me, like I'm just replacing the Whiterun Throne, you don't need to make a duplicate. Only make the duplicate if you're making your own standalone piece of furniture, right? That's not going to be replacing any of the ones that's in game. But since I'm making a replacer, we're going to start with a static object. I'm going to double click on it. If you're making a standalone, you're going to want to change the ID to like your mod's name, like this, like Thrones Expanded, and then it'll be like Whiterun Throne. But since we're not doing that, and I'm just making a replacer, I'm going to keep the ID the exact same. And then over here in the model, click Edit, Edit again, and then you're going to want to find the NIF that you made. So Whiterun Throne Remastered, click OK. There she is, click OK again, and then click OK again. Now, again, if you're making a standalone, you're going to want to double click the duplicate that you just made. But since we're making a replacer, we're just going to click the original. If you're making a standalone, again, replace the ID, but we're not. This is just a replacer, so we're going to keep the ID the same. Then over here for model, click Edit, click Edit again, navigate to Thrones Expanded, click Open, click OK, and then here we go. Now you shouldn't need to change anything else. Everything else should just work fine. I honestly wouldn't recommend fucking with anything else because the flags, you know, it's pretty obvious what a lot of these flags do. But again, unless you're super knowledgeable with it, since this is just your first one, just go ahead and keep everything the way it is. And then click OK. So from there, your furniture should work. Now, if you're making your standalone, you want to actually place it somewhere in game. But since I'm making a replacer, it's already placed in game, right? So we can actually just go see it in game real quick. So in navigating Dragon's Reach, if you click M, it'll hide all these markers and stuff. You can go ahead and see that our throne is right there, looking pretty nice, looking pretty cool. If you're making your own standalone piece of furniture and it's not a replacer, this is where you would drag in. You'd click this and then drag it into the scene, and then you'd be able to place it, you know, wherever you want. Don't drag in the static, drag in the actual furniture one. So now you're going to want to go ahead and click Save. And then this is where you'll name it. I'm going to name it Thrones Expanded. And then click Save. And so now everything should be working pretty well. It's not flagged as an ESL, but we want to go and test it in game real quick, just make sure that everything's looking great, fine and tidy, that sort of deal. So let's go ahead and check it out in game. All right, so now we can finally see Balgruuf sitting in his throne, doing his job as Jarl, doing what he's supposed to be doing. Now that we know it's working in Skyrim, let's go ahead and flag this as an ESL. All right, so to flag this as an ESL, we're gonna need SSE Edit. Go ahead down here to Files, Manual Download, and then click Download. Then inside of SSE Edit, we're gonna wanna go ahead and open it up. All right, once you have ESL open, you're going to want to deselect everything except Skyrim and its DLCs, as well as Thrones Expanded, or whatever the name of your mod is. You don't want to deselect that either. Then go ahead and just click OK. Alright, and once you have everything is loaded, go ahead and click on your ESP, click View, go up here to Record Header, click this little drop down, and here in Record Flags, double click on it, and then click ESL. From there, just Control S to save, click OK, and boom, done saving. So now it is flagged as an ESL, and so from here, you can go ahead and package everything up nice and tidy. So we're going to create a new folder called Thrones Expanded, and you're going to want to open up your Skyrim directory with all of your mod files in it. Once you have that open, go ahead and create the same folders. So we're going to create a data folder inside of our Thrones Expanded folder that we have on our desktop. From there, we're going to create a meshes folder, and we're going to create a textures folder. Now, you're going to want to find your ESP for your mod. Mine's called Thrones Expanded again. It should be in here, right there. So we're going to copy that. I'm going to paste it right there. Over here in the Thrones Expanded folder, the mod folder, we're going to want to click meshes, and then we'll click furniture, and then we'll create a new folder called furniture. And then inside that folder, we will create another new folder called Thrones Expanded to match the directory from earlier. So now we can copy this furniture folder with the Thrones Expanded folder inside of it, and then go into the textures folder and then paste it there, because it's, again, pretty much the exact same directory. Open up the meshes furniture Thrones Expanded on both your Skyrim data folder and the Thrones Expanded folder. And then we're going to go ahead and copy in our NIF files. I have an extra one here, ignore that, you probably won't. You're just going to be copying in the NIF file that we made. And then over here in the textures folder on both your data, your Skyrim data directory and your new mod directory, or mod folder directory, we're going to do the exact same thing, and then just copy these textures, close the Skyrim directory, and then it looks like we have everything there, and then right click, compress to zip file. And there you go. This is what you'll go ahead and upload to the Nexus, and now you have finished your furniture mod. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. For everybody that's been tuning into the live streams, I really appreciate it. I've been having a lot of fun doing them, and I plan on doing many more coming up in the future. If you like the video, please go ahead and leave a like, and also subscribe. It'd be really cool to, continue to grow the channel. During my last tutorial, we had not reached 1,000 subscribers yet, but now we finally have. That is such a really cool feeling. Ever since I was a kid, I always wanted a channel with over 1,000 subscribers. Now we're at 1,100, and that's a really great feeling. I'm having a lot of fun making videos, and I really appreciate you guys. If you want to see me making mods or just making art and hanging out over on stream, go ahead and follow me on twitch.tv/NoahLongsfellow. And also, if you have an idea of what tutorial you'd like to see next, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I'd really like to see what you guys are curious in. My last tutorial that I made was actually for Godot, and that did really well. It seems like you guys like that a lot, so I might end up doing a lot more Godot tutorials in the future. That would be pretty exciting, but I also want to continue to do modding stuff, so we'll be doing a little of both. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, do all that, and I'll see you guys all next time. Goodbye.